counters. In fact, we're already seeing two on Team Scratchum. There's Zool, who can lock Sonya down in place, and Falstead, who can slow her and stop her momentum from carrying over to their backline.
Absolutely. These guys went ahead and started this draft and didn't even let me go, but that's okay. Yeah, like you said, Thrall banned out first with the obvious Kael'thas ban to follow up. Sonya, a pretty interesting first pick here. Triple Tap Dancers really prioritizing that off-tank damage dealer, and then Falstad, I think, like you said, really great on this map. Zol, great ability to push in lane and get a lot of work done, primarily if they want to be able to split push in lane. And just a lot of high priority picks, nothing too out of the ordinary. Rhaegar being picked up for the side of Triple Tap Dancers, getting one of the strongest healers in the game. Good synergy with Sonya with Lightning Shield and the ability to Ancestral when she goes in deep, maybe gets a little low on health, can bring her right back up to full. And Li Ming, classic, one of the best burst damage in the game, and just no surprise there. Just a general, well-rounded draft coming out so far from Triple Tap Dancers.
And it seems we have a Lost Viking ban from Scratchum. That is a very good ban. While people fight and gather seeds during seed times, Vikings can always stay in lane and gather a large XP. So it looks like their team just isn't really wanting to deal with that.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of Vikings on this map with that whole mechanic of the Merc, the Merc control with bribe, and then also the ability to pump those up to steal camps and then empower them, get a lot of extra siege damage while the seed battles are going on. And then the ETC ban coming out from Triple Tap Dancers, looking to get a little bit of that warrior chokehold. Sonya not really considered a traditional tank, but definitely one of the frontliners that they're planning on running with in this match. So ETC is a pretty good ban to not give them too many options on the side of Scratchum for tanks. But they will pick up Muradin here as a response.
And that is a big blow from the Sonya pick itself. Sonya and Muradin are paired up a whole lot because Sonya has a hard time sticking to targets. Taking away that range stun could be really bad for Triple Tap Dancers.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they decide, what frontliner they decide to pair with Sonya. There are other tanks in the game that are capable of slowing down and helping Sonya keep up with some of the priority targets that they dive on, but as you said, Muradin is always a good diving buddy. And now we're going to see more of a combo with Zol, where Zol's able to get in and combo the root with that Muradin stun and get a lot of damage done. And Uther, yet another great follow-up, kind of one of your frontline healers, a lot like Rhaegar, where he usually tends to be a little bit closer to the action than most healers feel comfortable with. But that stun to follow up, a decent amount of CC coming out of Scratchum so far in this draft.
Triple Dancers may still pick a specialist in this fight, and it would be really, really strong on this map. Right now, Scratchum has 3 melee heroes. It would be good to get something a little bit anti-melee on their team, maybe like a Gazlowe.
Yeah, and they still have a couple of good options on the board as far as siege damage go. Sylvanas has been very popular in the meta lately. This is not one of her best maps, but due to the fact that the Garden Terrors naturally shut down the towers, but a new strategy that's been coming out recently has been using Sylvanas to counter push in a different lane, but they are going to pick up Johanna here. We knew they were going to have another frontliner to go with Sonya. Very few teams opt to go solo warrior Sonya, and so they'll pair it with Johanna. Probably the next best divey, beefy kind of tank, other than maybe ETC and Muradin that have been banned out and picked here to help Sonya at the very least to be able to stick on some of these targets. She can't do a whole lot by herself, but with that Condemn, she can at least slow down the targets, bring them in, and make them a little bit easier for Sonya to get to. And they are going to follow up with the Sylvanas. Another good backliner, very strong siege, and just overall, she's come up a lot in the format lately with that big wailing arrow silence. Pretty good for locking out healers like Uther, where they already have pretty high cooldowns, and so if you can catch an Uther as he's trying to wait for his cooldowns to come off to be able to spike heal somebody up real quick, it can be really devastating to some of the frontliners that are diving in deep and can be locked out of those heals for a little while.
Truth. Team Scratch'em has 15 seconds left for their last. One good last pick that may follow up with the comp they have right now would be Tyrant.
They are going to go
But they are
Jaina.
going to go with the Jaina.
Yeah, and I was kind of wondering whether or not they were going to go with a burst damage dealer. You know, they do have Falstad. Falstad can build kind of both ways, which is kind of a neat mechanic to Falstad, to where at the end of the day he can kind of serve in both of those roles. But I would say as a sustained damage is usually the way most people think of Falstad, and having Jaina as the follow-up gives them a pretty decent amount of ability to burst one target down and pretty instantly make these team fights pretty uneven. But we'll just have to see how this match comes out. If you had to take a guess based on the draft, who do you think won the draft here, Senpai?
Draft? I would have to say Team Scratch'em won the draft, but looking at the profiles for both teams, I would say the Triple Tap Dancers have almost double the amount of games played as the other team, so it's a real toss-up. Can't judge everything off of games played because, well, you could play different games and still rack up gaming experience, but I'd have to give my vote for Triple Tap Dancers if I was going to choose a team that might win between the two.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, and I actually really like the draft coming out of Triple Tap Dancers. They've got a very nice, well-rounded team. They've got good solid wave clear for getting the little shamblers, decent amount of damage to be able to put on the big shamblers to get the seeds, and I feel like they have a really good amount of siege potential. I always am a big fan of Sylvanas on this map for that counter push, and even though the mechanic is to shut down the forts with the Garden Terror, the forts keeps, Sylvanas is still able to give that to the team and is able to help with that, which is really nice. For when that pot does get knocked down and they don't get it from simply from that.
Team Scratch'em just really needs to look out for not falling into the mind game of going after those tanks first that are going straight into their backline. Of course, protect the backline if need be, but if you don't get to Li Ming after a certain amount of time, you're going to have a really rough time during any type of team fight or even small skirmish. Li Ming can poke a lot while people are trying to collect seeds or maybe fighting one of the main terrors. There's just a lot of poke coming from that end to where any type of conflict they have, Team Scratch'em is really gonna want to end it really, really quick or back off.
For sure, I'm always afraid for Jaina in this format. Ever since they changed her to where they took away Bolt of the Storm altogether, and they moved that ice block from level 13 to level 20. She's a lot more squishy, and I'm afraid if they stay too long, they're going to take a lot of poke from Li Ming. They're going to take a lot of dive from Johanna and Sonya, and Jaina will probably be the first one to get in trouble unless she positions very immaculately. So as we get loaded in here, we're going to introduce the two teams. On the left, in the blue trunks, we're going to have Triple Tap Dancers here on Garden of Terror. Brandon is going to be playing Li Ming. Fire Team is going to be playing Rhaegar. Throne on Sonya. Olim on Sylvanas. And Elsa is going to be playing Johanna. Meanwhile, on the red team, the Scratch'em, we're going to be seeing Falstad being played by Quosnar. Dida playing Jaina. Zabutak playing Muradin. Ronaldo playing Zul. And Happy Pete playing Uther.
Looks like the triple tap dancers right now are going for a power play down bottom, trying to knock out the starting 2 towers.
Well, and they are going to get the top of those 2 cannons, and they're kind of waiting for the response from Scratch'em here, and they do eventually rotate down here, but it might be a little bit too late to save this front wall. They are going to, it looks like they are going to push him off just before the second cannon goes down, but overall, Scratch'em elects to stay in the lanes, push up a little bit in the mid, and soak all 3 lanes, which I think ultimately will end up paying dividends for them. A very smart response. They sent enough to pressure them off of those towers, but not so much that they were losing any soak whatsoever. So in the bottom lane, we have Sonya going against Zol here in this one-on-one lane. Zol is just going to push this lane with his skeletons, but we are going to see rotations start to happen for these Shamblers as the first night phase is coming up here. And Ditto putting a lot of harass out on Sylv in the top lane. Getting a huge advantage up top before rotating down here. She will sniff
Looks
out.
like Sonya's caught out bottom. Oh.
Ooh. Nice catch there, partner. Yeah, I was a little worried for Jaina. She started to walk in on triple tap dancers there, but as soon as she saw those 3 up there working on that terror, and again, she's getting in here. She's getting a little caught out, and now she's laying some damage down, but she is going to end up getting blown up here by Johanna, Sylvanas, and Rhaegar. So an interesting choice to try and go in there and contest just solo Jaina. I'm not sure exactly what the goal was there, whether she was trying to steal seeds or maybe get a quick pick, but a very good response from triple tap dancers to just turn around and take care of her and then go back to getting the seeds.
Looks like both sides are going to tie off for seeds here. Right now we have both teams returning back to lanes.
Yeah, they get a very even 90 for 90 seeds, and yeah, like you said, both teams are going to get that soak out. But so far, it seems like Scratch'em has been getting a huge advantage as far as the soak goes. They've almost got a full level lead and advantage here. I talk a lot about stored XP that you get in these structures. So that early bottom rush to get one of those cannon forts will get you a little bit of an advantage in the early game, but ultimately, if you can't get the picks and you can't take an advantage off of that XP, you end up losing in the long run because the enemy team can always go and get your structures, but you can't get back the XP you lose in lane from these, from the minions.
And right now, it looks like there may be a communication error of some kind. They're abandoning the Sonya down bottom for camp, so that may wind up losing them a lot of ground here.
Yeah, and they are starting to get some of these structures on bottom for sure. A very, very big push from Falstad. And now we're going to see an invade here as Scratch'em is coming in to try and see who's working on these camps and maybe starting to try and steal some. We got Muradin and Uther up here working on the siege camp. Zol is in trouble, though. In hot pursuit is Team Triple Tap, and they are going to sniff out the fact that Uther and Muradin are on this bruiser camp. They're going to have to take a step back, and a team fight is going to break out. Scratch'em getting very, very low here. They're very far from their structures, so they got a long way to go, and Li Ming is going to get those resets rolling and get 2 kills off of it. Uther and Muradin end up paying for going in and trying to steal that camp, and Sonya and Rhaegar are going to say thank you very much and pick it up for themselves.
Yeah, it's a power play, and as we were saying before the game started, Li Ming is very strong in chokeholds and small corners. And that range just adds more and more pressure.
Yeah, she could still hit from a safe distance, but if she knows exactly where the enemy team is going, it's all to her benefit in those chokehold points for sure. Up here, Ditto on Jaina, continuing to pressure that top lane, and this battle rages on between Sylv and Jaina for control over this lane. Meanwhile, another rotation coming from Muradin here, starting to work on the siege camp, and Uther is going to join him again. Zol getting a lot of pressure in mid, but we are seeing a rotation. We are seeing the answer from Triple Tap Dancers, as at the very least Li Ming will come up and push him off of that cannon. Meanwhile, Rhaegar and Sonya continuing to work on this bruiser camp, continuing to go after these siege camps. Rhaegar, pretty good, not only a pretty good camp taker, but he's just good at contributing to helping somebody else with the lightning shield, the heals, and a general decent amount of damage as a support for the very least. But a big invade coming out from Triple Tap Dancers here, looking at maybe taking those 3 to try and get the seeds on the other side, but they will end up stepping back. I feel like they probably could have gone in on that Zol and ended up with a kill and getting some of those seeds, but they'll just back up and play it a little safe. You never know what's walking around that corner. Easy for us to say with our God view from on high, but you know, like I said, you never know what's waiting around those corners.
Exactly. It looks like right now that Team Scratch'em is trying to avoid fighting for the main terrace, and it looks like they're trying to engage it and wait for a race to 10.
And a big invade there from Triple Tap Dancers going up. They're going to catch Jaina out in lane. They almost caught Muradin, but he was able to dwarf toss out. And a very strong move as Scratch'em gets level 10 and picks up their ultimates, but able to get that gank. Help them get to level a little bit, and then they're going to take the top seeds. Meanwhile, the bottom seeds are still up for grabs. Scratch'em is going to go back and get their terror, but they're going to have to decide how they want to try to utilize this in balance with the fact that 2 of their members are down here getting more seeds for later.
Exactly. It's a very, very smart move.
Meanwhile, we got Brandon down here in Triple Tap Dancers terror, going to start work on this bottom fort that they had already started working on the front wall at the very beginning of the game. Falstad is going to come down to answer, but we'll have to see how many more as Muradin and Uther are going to be done collecting seeds there. And again, an uncanny ability to split these exactly evenly. 90 to 90, building straight into 80 to 80 after the second night phase. I don't think I've ever seen that before. Zol is going to be knocked out of Scratch'em's Garden Terror here, and a tremendous amount of pressure coming out from Triple Tap Dancers on this top fort, but that's the kind of thing you can do with Sylvanas. That's what this comp is built to do. You leave your Terror alone to push, and the rest of the team can push a different lane, but just Zol and Falstad alone putting a lot of pressure on him, pushing him back. The rotation coming up from Uther. They're going to get the stun out on Sonya. The root coming down, but a great Ancestral to bring Sonya right back to the top, and they are thinking about turning on this. They're actually going to continue walking back, and the pressure coming from those Zol skeletons is tremendous. But the re-engage is going to happen here as Triple Tap Dancers is going to go back in on this. A 4v4 as we got Li Ming and Jaina away from the fight, but everybody else is in on this. The Hinterlands Bast comes out, hitting 3 members, and Johanna is going to get caught out, but a last-second heal comes in from Rhaegar to save him, and they're going to look at re-engaging this. A just long battle raging here on the top.
Exactly. It looks like Team Scratch'em may finally give this out. We were talking about this at the start of game. They cannot survive these long skirmishes. If they're going to have these conflicts, they're going to need to end them quick, because if it's a bad sustain, their team just cannot keep up with the other team.
Yeah, and that is without Li Ming there, without that Li Ming poke from range, where that's her bread and butter. That's where she gets an advantage over Jaina, is the ability to just continue throwing those spells out for days. Meanwhile, Triple Tap Dancers is going to go ahead and finish off the siege camp, but is going to wait a little while on capping that one. But I think they're going to wait probably for the night phase to go ahead and get maximum value out of it. Meanwhile, Falstad is going to come in here and try and see if he can get a little bit of a gank. Jaina is going to rotate up here too, and Sylvanas is going to find herself in a little bit of trouble. She's going to try to Haunting Wave out, but it's not going to be in time, and she is going to lose her life.
And this is exactly what Team Scratch'em needs to do. For their team to win and be a lot more effective to the other team, they need to play to their strengths, which is gank and trying to catch other people on the other team while they're in transition from point to point.
Johanna is going to get in here to try and help defend this fort, but ultimately this fort is in a lot of trouble. But without any minion waves to help, they are going to end up backing out here. Ring of Frost is going to come out, but it's a big whiff as it doesn't even hit Johanna in the middle there. But Li Ming's poke is enough to push them off at this point. Meanwhile, this siege camp is still waiting to be capped, possibly for the night phase. As we see it coming in 5 seconds, they will go ahead and rotate into it, cap it, and looks like right now triple tap dancers might be looking at going down to the bottom. Actually, they're going to continue to split up here. Both teams very split. Sonya make an aggressive rotation in the bottom to try and get the seeds from the opposing side. And it's going to end up in a 3v3 here. Li Ming coming out with a disintegrating beam here.
It's like Zul's going down. Oh!
Oh, and an aggressive...
By a divine shield.
An aggressive Falstad fly in, but Zol is going to end up getting taken down right after Uther. And now Muradin in a lot of trouble. Will Dwarf toss out, but a total victory there by Triple Tap Dancers. Able to push them out. They end up getting a lot of those seeds, and now they're going to have the advantage as both teams start to rotate out for these seeds. Falstad is keeping an eye on this, though. I'm a little worried how aggressive this positioning is. I think he might be trying to see about trying to get in and get some of these, but ultimately he'll just have to back away. Not a whole lot he can do there by himself against the whole enemy team. Meanwhile, this top Shambler is just waiting for somebody to come up and get some seeds. It looks like Triple Tap Dancers are going to be the first one to rotate up there. As both teams are going to go ahead and get their Garden Terrors right about the same time. And looks like a fight is going to end up starting here over this. Falstad and Muradin caught a little bit out by 3 members and more players rotating in here. This is going to end up being a 4v4. They are going to end up fighting over here. While in the bottom lanes, the 2 terrors might slap each other around a little bit, but they're just going to pass each other. The Ring of Frost comes out again, not really hitting anybody. A pretty brilliant dodge there by Triple Tap Dancers to not let it get hit. And it's like you said, this fight is going to continue raging on further and further. We'll have to see if Scratch'em is able to engage or able to burst somebody down, as Johanna is the first to get burst down there.
Yeah, Jaina landed a big combo on top of the entire team, at least hitting 3 players. That was really good on her. And
ending these fights quickly. Meanwhile, both of the terrors are getting about the same amount of work done. Brandon down here in the Garden Terror for Triple Tap Dancers, working on the front wall. Same exact thing for Ronaldo for Scratch'em. Both teams playing pretty similar styles here. And Brandon is going to go ahead and rotate up to the mid, and Happy Feet's waiting for him up here in Uther. And Scratch'em is going to collapse on this and get a decent amount of poke out, but Brandon is going to end up walking away here. He's only got 10 seconds left. No real, nothing he's really going to be able to do here before this terror is gone. So he's just going to get himself repositioned for the defense. Meanwhile, all 5 members of Scratch'em are in here, but it looks like they're going to back off a little bit. Both teams kind of posturing, kind of seeing if they can catch anybody out, but ultimately, Ring of Frost will come out and hit Johanna at the very least. They're trying to burst her down, but it'll only get her to about half health, and Scratch'em will end up backing out of this.
And you can see that the Triple Tap Dancers are starting to suffer just a little bit because they're being kited out by the other team. They're having a hard time trying to stick on to them unless Team Scratch'em decides to hard commit.
Well, and I feel like that's one of the big advantages that are going to be gained as we continue on this match for Scratch'em, is that with they do have the advantage in terms of deciding when to engage and when not to engage. You would think that with Falstad having, if Falstad had taken Gust, it would have made that even more of a possibility, but with Hinterland's Blast, it kind of negates the ability for them to do that.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, the blue team here, Triple Tap Dancers, they definitely got a huge advantage in seeds that time, and Happy Feet getting very low on Uther in this team fight, but they will blow up Johanna once again. They catch Johanna a little bit out, but the Garden Terror is in here. And that's going to give them a little bit of an advantage to try to escape at the very least. And Triple Tap Dancers, taking that fight right up on the wall, end up taking a ton of damage, and they're going to have to back out of here, and they're probably going to lose their terror from it as well. I take it back.
Not just the terror,
definitely.
They may just lose the player inside.
Yeah, Li Ming trying to get some harass out, but she blinks right into the ring, and the ring is going to take her down. Meanwhile, a huge push coming out of Scratch'em here. They realize they have the advantage. They are looking to get, at the very least, clear out this mid lane to where the front wall is. We'll have to see what they decide to do with the rest of this advantage, as Li Ming is still out for nearly 30 seconds. They are going to start splitting up. They're going to start looking at taking camps, and well, actually seeds now, as yet again the night phase is up. The battle rages on here on Garden of Terror, where you just never really get a break.
And right now, it's very important for Team Scratch'em to solidify this lead, because if the Triple Tap Dancers get to 20, they're going to have a giant power spike that they may not be able to stop.
Yeah, but they've got an entire level and a half before Triple Tap Dancers have been able to get there. And so far, both teams prioritizing seeds. Scratch'em able to get both of the side camps in bottom and all of the camps in top. So they're going to have a pretty big seed advantage coming out of this one. In fact, I don't believe Triple Tap Dancer. No, they are not even going to get one terror from this unless they make a really aggressive engage here. They do look like they're rotating up into the mid at the very least, but I don't think they're not gonna get there in time to take any of these seeds away. In fact, they're not even gonna rotate up to it. It looks like they're just gonna stay mid and maybe try and put a little bit of pressure on this fort, but the defense is pretty solid. Zol here, Falstad, and they feel like that's enough to keep them back. They can't see where the rest of the team is, and they are gonna back out. You know, no clairvoyance on that Rhaegar Senpai. They can't figure out exactly where this team is a lot of the time.
Exactly, and that may just harm the Malat.
Yeah, not a whole lot of vision from either of these teams, to be honest with you. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a detriment. Knowing where your opponents are on Garden of Terror is nice, but it's not as essential as some of the other maps. It's always nice to have vision on your opponents, but certainly certain maps have a higher priority on it. But the one terror that we're going to see out of these phases is going to go onto the side of Scratch'em, and they're going to make a push here on the mid keep. And they want to do as much as they can here before Triple Tap Dancers has a chance to get level 20 and has a better chance of defending this. But they are going to get a lot of poke damage, a lot of harass out on Demuradin, and an entire minute is going to end up being wasted on this terror as Ring of Frost comes out, and a lot of damage being put down onto Scratch'em in return. But Li Ming is going to be blown up by that Hinterland's Blast.
Sylvanas is just hanging on to her style. Her team needs to end in this fight.
Yeah, right now it looks like they might have been waiting for 20, but 20 is just not coming. It has not gotten here yet, and yet again, Scratch'em is going to end up walking away with not a ton of siege damage. They are able to get the front wall for the mid, but they do win the team fight. They get 2 down, and so now they can go back and paint the map red. But I mean, I think that's a lot of the big advantage here for Sylvanas on this map. Being able to shut down those towers, get a lot of extra siege damage out to support the terror, and just in general, it makes it a lot more beneficial to be able to push with it, because that terror got completely exploded. Granted, it was a 5v5 defense there, so I guess you can only expect so much. As we see so much poke potential and so much harass out of Triple Tap Dancer's comp here. But both of those camps are going to be picked up simultaneously. Nice move there by Scratch'em to hold off on picking up one of those before the other one. And just both teams rotating together, looking to see if they can catch anybody out, but not being too aggressive. Triple Tap Dancers are going to go up and clean up. Well, they were looking at maybe cleaning up the top, but I think they might be looking for Scratch'em here, trying to figure out where they are. And they'll get the tip off there from the camp invade. And yet again, a nice rotation. As soon as this night phase comes up, Scratch'em is right on it to start on these seeds. But a big invade coming. Here comes Triple Tap Dancers running together, and they are going to make this a 5-person team fight. Jaina a little bit out of the fight. Zol gets poked way down before he gets that Divine Shield, but he is not going to be able to re-engage here. However, a huge Ancestral coming out on Sonya to save her after she got hit by that ring. And they are on the chase here. They are looking to come after Scratch'em. Scratch'em is retreating with all they got. Muradin actually looking to turn it on this thing. Uther's going to come back with his level 20 trait, and they are going to re-engage on this. Meanwhile, most of the teams of Triple Tap Dancer, most of the players on Triple Tap Dancer are going to be it for health at this point. And because as this fight has been raging on, each of these lanes have been pushing super hard from all of the camps that were taken by Scratch'em.
Yeah, right now, Team Triple Dances is fighting a giant uphill battle because before they can even reach the seeds, they need to make sure that their towers don't go down first so that the catapults don't spawn.
Absolutely, and 2 of those forts are in an incredible amount of pressure in the mid and the bottom. Those forts are almost to the point of being sneezable here. Muradin is going to be caught a little bit out by this rotation, but of course, Muradin, one of the hardest enemies to lock down, is going to jump out. However, Uther is going to get caught a little bit. He's going to get slowed, and the ring is going to come out. It is going to slam and kill Rhaegar. A lot of that burst coming out from Falstad and Jaina, and now they are pushing the Triple Tap Dancers back once again. Sonya will fall, and the Wailing Arrow comes out and silences and gets a lot of the team low, but it's not enough to finish them. They're not able to get those resets going, and their terror is pushing towards this mid. This could be game, Senpai.
Yes, it very well could. Right now, Triple Tap Dancers is running problem where Li Ming's damage isn't enough to hurt the other team's front line, but Jaina is capable of hurting the 3 melee heroes that they have on their team.
Absolutely, and with 21 seconds on Rhaegar and 28 seconds on Sonya, there was just absolutely no way they could defend this. They do go back and grab the Terror. The Terror is going to be enough to at least push them back, but that's going to be at the first keep of the game, going over to the side of Scratch'em. And 23 minutes in, we're finally getting the first fort going down. What was that I was saying about Garden of Terror earlier? These matches can just go on forever and ever.
It's a long time.
Meanwhile, Triple Tap Dancers rotating to the bottom here. They're looking to get as far away as possible from where Scratch'em is right now, as they are going to try and put some pressure on this keep. Falstad is going to go ahead and fly down and start getting some damage out. Already, the Terror is down to about 2/3 health, and about a minute left here. They are going to start to push in on this, but Zol able to put so much counter pressure with those skeletons. Every single one of those minions that fall, all of a sudden this wave gets really hard to push against.
Team Triple Tap Dancers right now is really desperate. They know that the lane pressure is against them, but they really need a fort right now.
Yeah, they really need to knock down one of these keeps. They need to get their the catapults spawning. As we see in the mid lane, it is slowly pushing in more and more against the core of Triple Tap Dancers. Meanwhile,
the Ring of Frost comes out.
The Ring of Frost comes out, and it is going to blow up Rhaegar, but Zol is going to end up paying with his life, getting in a little bit too deep maybe to try and get that Poison Nova off. It is going to get a little bit of value in helping take down Rhaegar, but ultimately, Li Ming is putting out a tremendous amount of poke from a safe distance here, gets Happy Feet on Uther way low, and it's going to end up being a 1-for-1 exchange. Overall, not too bad for either team, but a solid defense there by Scratch'em. They were able to keep them away from getting either one of those keeps. Meanwhile, both teams rotating out to get camps. A little bit of an aggressive rotation as Triple Tap Dancers on their way out decided to get the siege camp to continue to pressure the bottom lane. And the rotation up by Scratch'em to get the top 2 camps once again. But not necessarily a bad rotation. You know, that siege camp is going to start going straight in towards the core. It's actually going to get stalled by the opponent's siege camp. But nonetheless, both teams prioritizing getting Merc camps in the lanes that they have the most pressure on. A pretty smart move. Triple Tap Dancers are going to go ahead and rotate up to the top lane, clear this massive minion wave that's coming in, and grab their siege camp here on top. And both teams, again, playing pretty similarly. Scratch'em doing the same thing. They realize that the keep that is under the most duress is in the bottom lane, so they're going to rotate out, take out all of the siege pressure that was coming from those 2 siege camps, clear that up so it's safe, and then they are going to reposition to start to get ready to get seeds in the bottom and maybe try and bush a little bit here to see if they can catch anybody out. But Triple Tap Dancers is not falling for it. They knew that they were in bottom. They knew Scratch'em was in bottom, so they're going to take advantage and get this top fort and take out the final fort for the side of Scratch'em.
Exactly. The key to Triple Tap Dancers trying to win this game is they need to find a way to shut down that Jaina player. That's the single player that has taken their team out every single time. If they try to wait this out with Terrace, that may be a game that they may not win.
Meanwhile, a lot of pressure coming in here. Rather than trying to get all the seeds, Scratch'em decides to go ahead and pick up the two small Shambler camps, which is going to be enough to get them the terror, and they rotate down very aggressively and take down a second fort. They get that bottom keep. 2 keeps down now for Triple Tap Dancers. Meanwhile, they are going to rotate into in with the terror here, and they are going to look to push in possibly for lethal here. They're going to try and catch somebody out. They're going to battle a little bit with this very healthy terror. Meanwhile, Johanna going in deep. The silence coming out from Wailing Arrow. And Jaina gets bursted down. And Happy Feet is going to be the next one to fall on Uther. He is going to have that level 20 talent that is going to allow him to come back. However, a nice return Hintering's Blast to take out Sonya. And they may be able to re-engage this here now that Uther is back up. And meanwhile, the Terror, all the while, just walked right past all of this and has been beating up on the core. The Pot able to take down the defenses for the core, not hitting back, and this could be lethal here. It's gonna be close. And they are gonna take down the core. They got it. Scratch'em is gonna end up winning this game in a nail biter at the end here.
That's a really, really clutch game there.
Yeah, and a lot of that was set up by that return Hinterland's Blast. A very impressive. Yeah, it's definitely not the ult that I would have expected to see Falstad come out with, but he got a lot of value out of it right at the end there, taking down Sonya, one of their main deterrents to big siege damage like that, being able to push in really hard, and that alone was enough for them to be able to push back in to support the terror that was on core and take out their core. And pretty impressive. You know, we don't see a whole lot of wins with Jaina. You know, Jaina is one of the least popular heroes in the meta right now. As far as she's definitely, maybe arguably other than Chromie, the least popular artillery mage in the backlines. But a pretty impressive game. I feel like she played pretty well right up until the end. It seemed like Triple Tap Dancers finally figured out the formula for trying to go up against that, and they were able to counter her out and blow her up in that last one. But I feel like they spent so much resource on that, and Jaina still got the value out of that team fight that she needed to be able to set her team up to win that last, or at least do well enough in that last team fight to get the win.
And one of the reasons that Jaina was such an effective pick for their team was for the mere fact that she punishes the other team from trying to advance really, really, really hard. And that's one of the main parts of their comp. those two frontliners need to be a giant distraction so that Li Ming can do her job. But if they can't approach in, they can't have much of a fight at all.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much for joining us, guys. And Senpai, thank you very much for your expert analysis, joining me and casting this game. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And we're going to be moving on to our next match, which is going to be coming up in just a couple minutes. So I'm gonna take a minute to reset the stream and get everything going again for the next one. Thank you very much for joining us, guys. Thanks to both teams, and congratulations to Scratchem for this win here in Chair League.